Narcissists believe they have you figured out. They expect you to forgive endlessly, to explain yourself when accused, and to stay no matter how much they push. What they never expect, the one thing that truly hurts them, is when you stop playing their game. Psychologists explain that this shift shocks their ego. The moment you walk away or go silent, they feel wounded in ways they never imagined. The most hurtful thing you can do to a narcissist is not revenge, anger, or confrontation. It's indifference. They thrive on drama, whether it's love or hate. As long as you're reacting, they feel powerful. But when you stop reacting altogether, psychologists call it a narcissistic injury. That quiet withdrawal cuts deeper than any insult, because it leaves them powerless. Narcissists never thought you would stop chasing their approval. They've trained you to seek validation, to crave their recognition. But psychologists affirm that once you learn to validate yourself, their grip slips. Suddenly their opinion no longer defines you. This independence terrifies them, because it proves you can live without them. And that realization hurts them more than any words could. They also never thought you'd leave for good. Narcissists rely on the cycle: love bomb, devalue, discard, and hoover. They count on you returning after each discard. But when you go no contact and actually stick with it, the cycle ends. Psychologists say this finality is unbearable for them. It's the hurtful move they never planned for, you choosing freedom over their control. Another hurtful thing is when you find happiness without them. Narcissists expect you to suffer, to stay broken. But when you rebuild, smile again, and even thrive, it feels like betrayal to them. Psychologists note that your joy without them stings because it proves they weren't as essential as they believed. This hurts them endlessly because it exposes their irrelevance. Narcissists never thought you'd expose their behavior. They rely on silence, hoping you'll carry the shame of what they did. But when you speak your truth, their mask cracks. Psychologists highlight that exposure feels like annihilation to their ego. That simple act of telling your story becomes the most hurtful blow, because it reveals what they worked so hard to hide. They also never thought you'd stop defending them to others. For years you may have made excuses, covered their behavior, or smoothed over conflicts. But the day you stop protecting their image is the day their facade collapses. Psychologists emphasize that losing your loyalty hurts more than losing your love. They regret ever pushing you to that point. Another unexpected hurt comes when you forgive yourself. Narcissists want you stuck in guilt, blaming yourself for their abuse. But psychologists explain that self-forgiveness frees you. The moment you say, "I am not to blame," you break the chain. This hurts them deeply because they lose their favorite weapon, your shame. Without it, they can no longer control the narrative. Narcissists never thought you would become stronger because of them. They wanted to break you, not build you. But psychologists say survivors often grow more resilient after abuse. Your strength hurts them because it proves their cruelty failed. Instead of destroying you, they forged you into someone powerful. That reversal is the hurtful outcome they never expected. And here is the biggest hurt of all. They never thought you'd stop loving them. Narcissists believe your love is unconditional, no matter how much pain they cause. But love cannot survive endless betrayal. Psychologists affirm that when you withdraw love, the narcissist feels the void of their own emptiness. That loss haunts them because they realize too late that they destroyed something real. They never thought you would stop explaining yourself. Narcissists thrive when you defend, clarify, and justify because it keeps you tangled in their web. But psychologists explain that silence is more powerful. When you refuse to engage in their endless debates, they feel robbed of control. That hurt runs deep because they realize their manipulation no longer works on you. Another hurtful move is when you find your voice. Narcissists rely on your silence, assuming you'll stay quiet out of fear or confusion. But when you begin to tell your story, to friends, family, or even a wider audience, they feel exposed. Psychologists call this reputational threat their worst nightmare. They regret ever giving you a reason to speak out. Narcissists also never thought you would stop being afraid of them. They use intimidation, anger, and withdrawal to keep you under control. But when you find courage and stop shrinking, Psychologists confirm that their power evaporates. That bravery hurts them because it proves their fear tactics failed. Nothing wounds a narcissist more than realizing they can't scare you anymore. They regret when you build a new life. Narcissists assume you'll always orbit around them, even after the relationship ends. But when you start traveling, laughing, creating, or falling in love again, psychologists note that it pierces their ego. Your new life without them proves they weren't the center of your universe. That's a hurt they can't easily shake off. Another hurtful action is when you stop needing closure from them. Narcissists want you chasing apologies or explanations because it keeps you tied. But when you create closure yourself, psychologists explain that you rob them of their final tool. You no longer depend on them for healing. That independence hurts them deeply because it shows they're no longer in control of your story. They never thought you would stop reacting to their Hoover attempts. Narcissists thrive on pulling you back in with fake kindness or promises. But when you block, delete, and ignore, psychologists describe it as a final injury. Your refusal to even acknowledge them is hurtful because it confirms they no longer matter in your world. They regret when you choose peace over chaos. For narcissists, chaos is fuel. They thrive on drama. But when you decide to walk away and focus on your peace, psychologists affirm that you strip them of power. That choice hurts them because it shows they no longer control your emotional world. Peace becomes the most powerful revenge. Another painful realization comes when you set boundaries and stick to them. At first, they may laugh or test you. But when you hold firm, blocking calls, refusing manipulation, and saying no, psychologists say it crushes them. Boundaries remind them that they are not entitled to your energy. That truth is hurtful because it destroys their illusion of ownership. They never thought you'd stop idealizing them. Narcissists thrive on being the hero or the victim in your eyes. But when you see them clearly, flaws, lies, and cruelty, their fantasy shatters. Psychologists confirm that this reality check wounds their ego. They regret losing the pedestal you once placed them on, because no one else will ever see them the way you did. Perhaps the most hurtful thing is your indifference. Hate still feeds them, anger still engages them, but indifference is silence, absence, and freedom. Psychologists explain that indifference is the true end of their control. When you no longer think of them, they cease to exist in your world. And that hurts them more than any insult ever could. They never thought you'd forgive yourself for staying so long. Narcissists depend on your shame, keeping you stuck in self-blame. But when you release that guilt, psychologists note that you cut their chain. This hurts them because it means their manipulation no longer defines you. You're free, and they regret not breaking you enough to keep you trapped. They regret when you surround yourself with support. Narcissists isolate victims, making them feel alone. But when you reconnect with friends, family, or community, psychologists affirm that their power disappears. Seeing you supported hurts them deeply, because it proves you're stronger in a circle of love than you ever were in their shadow. Another hurtful act is when you stop explaining their behavior to others. For years, you may have defended them. They're just stressed, or they didn't mean it. But psychologists say the moment you stop making excuses, the truth spreads. Their mask crumbles and they regret every cruel act that now shines in the open. They never thought you would thrive after leaving. Narcissists expect you to collapse without them. But when you grow, heal, and succeed, psychologists emphasize that it stings deeply. Your thriving is proof that they were never your source of strength. That realization is hurtful because it strips away their fantasy of being irreplaceable. They regret when you find love again. Real love, not the manipulation they offered, but genuine connection. Psychologists note that watching you loved properly exposes how poorly they treated you. This comparison hurts them more than anything, because it proves what they lost wasn't just you. It was the chance to experience real intimacy. They never thought you would stop fearing abandonment. Narcissists use the threat of leaving as control. But when you embrace solitude and find peace on your own, psychologists explain that it wounds them. Your strength in being alone shows they can't use fear anymore. That independence hurts them because it reveals their irrelevance. Another painful truth is when you stop protecting their secrets. Narcissists count on your loyalty, even after abuse. But psychologists highlight that when you start telling your truth, their lies collapse. They regret underestimating your courage because exposure hurts them more than any punishment. The truth is the one weapon they can't control. They regret when you learn to love yourself fiercely. Narcissists hoped you'd always doubt your worth. But when you embrace self-love, psychologists affirm that their abuse loses power. Every act of self-care, every affirmation, every step toward healing hurts them, because it proves their cruelty only made you stronger. They never thought you'd stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Narcissists rely on your empathy, twisting it into weakness. But psychologists explain that once you stop excusing their behavior, their mask shatters. This hurts them because it shows they've lost access to your compassion. They regret burning through the one resource that made you stay. The most hurtful realization for a narcissist is that they created their own regret. Psychologists emphasize that your choices, silence, healing, boundaries, success, are only responses to their cruelty. In the end, what hurts them most is knowing they pushed too far. They never thought you'd find freedom, but you did. And that freedom becomes the wound they carry until the end. They never thought you'd stop craving their attention. Narcissists thrive when every move you make revolves around them. But psychologists explain that once you redirect your focus to yourself, hobbies, and passions, it stings. Your world no longer orbits theirs. That hurt cuts deep because it proves they were never as central to your life as they believed. They regret when you block their access. For narcissists, even years later, they expect to drop a text or show up and pull you back in. But when you block numbers, emails, and social media, psychologists affirm it delivers a painful shock. They realize you built a life without them, and that wall of no access is something they never saw coming. They never thought you'd stop believing their false apologies. Narcissists sprinkle fake remorse to reel you back. But when you see through the empty words, psychologists say it injures them deeply. Refusing to accept their hollow apologies shows that you value actions over words. That hurts because it strips them of one of their easiest tools for manipulation. They regret when you laugh again. For narcissists, your pain was proof of their control, but psychologists emphasize that laughter is healing, and when survivors rediscover joy, it stings. Each laugh proves their power faded. They regret causing harm that didn't break you, because your happiness reminds them of the love and joy they'll never truly feel. They never thought you'd stop playing the victim of their story. Narcissists love to paint themselves as the hero and you as the weak link. But when you rise, heal, and reclaim your narrative, psychologists highlight that it's devastating. Your empowerment hurts them because it rewrites the story. They are no longer in control of how others see you. They regret when you start inspiring others. Survivors often turn their pain into a platform, helping friends, family, or even strangers recognize red flags. Psychologists note that this transformation flips the script. Your strength helps others escape, which means fewer victims for them. That ripple effect hurts because it shows their cruelty created a legacy of resilience. They never thought you'd build new connections. Narcissists isolate their victims to stay in control. But when you reconnect with family, find true friends, or build supportive communities, psychologists explain that it exposes their lies. They regret every attempt to cut you off because your new circle proves they failed to keep you dependent. They regret when you stop being curious about their life. Narcissists expect you to stalk their social media, wonder about their new relationships, or crave updates. But psychologists affirm that when you stop looking, they panic. Your disinterest hurts them because it shows they're no longer relevant in your mind. Nothing wounds them more than being forgotten. They never thought you'd hold them accountable. Narcissists rely on excuses, blaming childhood, stress, or other people. But when you say, "No, you chose this," psychologists explain that it devastates them. Accountability strips away their shield. That truth hurts because it reveals their cruelty was never justified. It was always a choice. They regret when you rise higher than they ever expected. Narcissists believe their abuse limits your future. But psychologists emphasize that survivors often excel after leaving. Your growth becomes undeniable proof of their failure. Each milestone is a reminder that their attempt to hold you back didn't work. That regret burns because it shows you never needed them. They never thought you'd stop defending their reputation. For years, you may have protected their image, covering up outbursts or lies. But psychologists say the day you let others see the truth, their mask crumbles. They regret losing your protection because no one shields them like a loyal empath. That exposure is one of the most hurtful things they'll face. They regret when you stop internalizing their insults. Narcissists throw cruel words to break you. But when you realize those words reflect them, not you, psychologists highlight that the power shifts. Their insults fall flat, and the hurt bounces back onto them. They regret ever using that tactic because it no longer defines your worth. They never thought you'd build peace in your solitude. Narcissists believe you can't survive alone, but psychologists explain that solitude often brings healing, creativity, and freedom. When you enjoy your own company, it devastates them. That peace is hurtful to them because it proves you were never dependent. They were the ones clinging all along. They regret when you stop seeking revenge. Narcissists expect angry victims because anger still ties you to them. But psychologists affirm that the moment you release revenge and choose peace, you take all their power. This hurts them because it shows they're no longer the center of your emotions. Your indifference cuts deeper than any retaliation ever could. They never thought you'd expose their patterns to their new supply. Narcissists count on repeating cycles with new partners, but psychologists explain that when you share your experience, the next person sees through the mask faster. This exposure hurts deeply because it ruins their illusion of starting fresh. They regret pushing you to the point of truth-telling. They regret when you find someone who truly loves you. Narcissists believe they're irreplaceable, but psychologists emphasize that healthy love makes their love look like control and emptiness. Your new relationship highlights what they failed to give. That comparison hurts because it proves they lost someone who only wanted to love, genuinely. They never thought you'd stop caring about their approval. Narcissists live for being the judge of your worth. But when you stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start saying, "I am enough," psychologists note that it wounds them. Your self-acceptance hurts because it strips away their role as gatekeeper of your confidence. They regret when you tell your story without anger. At first, your pain was their proof of control, but when you calmly explain what happened, psychologists highlight that it destroys their narrative. Calm truth is more powerful than rage. It hurts them because it paints them exactly as they are. Without drama, without excuses, just exposed. They never thought you'd turn your scars into strength. Narcissists hoped the pain would silence you. But psychologists affirm that scars often become symbols of survival. When you wear them with pride, they hurt because it proves their abuse didn't define you. It empowered you. That transformation is the most painful mirror they'll ever face. And here's the final blow. The narcissist never thought you'd live a full, joyful life without them. They expected to haunt you forever. But psychologists explain that healing closes that door. Your freedom, peace, and happiness are the hurtful things they never saw coming. And that regret doesn't fade. It follows them until the day they die, while you move forward unchained.